So these poems are all from my new book called Becoming the Sound of Bees, which is about to come out with Ampersand Books. These are not set on Fogo, but close. So the first poem is called Static. In that year, that was not a year, when the days were not like days, and the sky was birdless. We listened for the sound of bees, and hearing nothing but the wind boxing the panes, we began to hum and buzz and drone, becoming the grey matter before words. So this poem, the next poem, is called Yet Another Reincarnation. And I did a series, I lived in Iceland for a while. I worked for the English language Icelandic newspaper. And I did a series of interviews with spiritualists, all sorts of people who claimed to have connection with the other side. And this was inspired by a friend of mine. She's a channeler. Her name is Guka Svensdottir, and the poem is called Yet Another Reincarnation. I pay my soothsayer in hard-boiled eggs, chicken wings, gristly claws, livers, or gizzards. She believes in the due process of tempests, visions of omniscient butterflies. An old woman scrubbing floors portends violent crime or racketeering. Finch in the hand, fraud or incest. Beetle on the mantelpiece, ill health. She snatches invisible lassos from the air, spins dizzy larks above my head. Everywhere she sees living dead. Centuries of men on the low road to the country fair. Millennia of citizens ensnared in menial tasks. Plowing, sowing, reaping, daydreaming. Mostly she knows where lightning will hit. Who will spontaneously combust, become president, overnight millionaire. With my own eyes I saw her heal a cancerous man, the single touch of her arthritic hands. Twice she foretold my almost decline, of the possible Grand Curtain, a lifetime of sighs. Once a jet in the skies, once in a train wreck. She hears the constant chatter behind grandmothers and aunts and ex-wives. The past is a series of dots you can trace through the sky. It's the future that's hard to count. Though in a finite universe, only so many spots can branch out. Think of it as an astral crossword, and the crowds that shuffle ahead and behind, dead or alive, all animated beings begging for sound advice on love and career, sex and disease. There's little she hasn't been forced to hear, even in this lifetime. So she raises her soul umbrella, an unseen parasol, to ward off gnashing thunder of lost voices, stinging hail of multiple choices, and in her abode of double entendre, a ghostly breeze blows, 2 degrees warmer than outside the door. It snakes under your skin and coils there until you're quite ready to unravel. The wife thinks, I've lost my head in this wild ranting of this other woman. And she swears by Almighty God, the fields will remain parched and the harvest a washout if I keep this up. One day, she says, the earth will buckle beneath my legs. And in my next life, when I return as a moth, destined to bump around lamps, perched still, motionless, on bark in broad daylight. And 3 days later, I shall lay my pearly eggs on the leaf of an elm, shaded in the gables of a chicken coop, and over, the clucking, the clucking, the clucking. This poem was inspired by my uncle Fortunato. He's a lawyer and he makes a lot of money in Switzerland. The poem is called After the Invention of Polystyrene, a Ligurian goat crosses the equator. A butt in a tailspin, mad spark of keratin, scratching hard wood, and that buck-toothed backbite, double chew, driving through everything if you pleases. Shoes, hats, button ties, that crumpled trilby Giuseppe wore with his 30s Valentino in the buttonhole, and off-white carnation in another incarnation, carrying the fleas of late middle age. An idler, a swiller of leftover orange pop, a guzzler of misconstrued rubbish, gunk and grease. Sono malcontento e racataccio, as was parlayed by great Uncle Fortunato, before his last hand of blackjack on an ocean liner from Jakarta to Genoa via Dar es Salaam, as he observed an empty can of mystery meat circle a lone polystyrene container, then hover and dive gullishly into a shoal of mackerel in a calm, waveless Indian Ocean, crossing the equatorial with a borderline heart attack. And finally, that Bornean warrior, raised not by Cain, but by a clan of cannibals, a bird's delicate leg bone through his flared nostrils, adjusting his penis sheath on the crux of an equinox, while dreaming of a creature he'd never seen, but knew from a lifetime of belly aches and breathy sighs, curried in Bombay on a street stall, in sinews and gristle, fat dripping to a chuff-up floor, dusted in fine particles of the most ancient Macedonian gold, collected motes by mote on fingertips by a team of orphaned ragamuffins known as the All That Glitters, and that mad pan flute playing Italian passione that carried Uncle Fortunato from the silver platter of bright colonial Indonesia to the shredded and shaded alleys of serpentine Genoa in pursuit of a dream of old wives' tales, more than anything he could have foreseen. So back to Fogo, we have the poem Biohazard. Unequivocally yours, Molly. In her last note she signs off. It brings infinite toxicity level 4, what we fear but never conceive. War you tolerate, as an acquaintance turned, matter rings in your ears, crumbled stuff. The virus claims the head, devours the soul. Mal de los rastrojos, breakbone fever, Ebola, Hanta, Lassa, mutating of variola. Things are left standing in the end, we know all their God-fearing names, like very bad men from the Gestapo, the Stasi. Molly pins them on a fridge beneath magnetized pineapples and smiley faces, beneath Max's crayon skyline. To-do lists, tax return, form curling at corners, take out menu from Wong's Golden Wok. They secrete through taps, drizzle dams, slipstreams. Like hurricanes, we baptize them Alma and Boris, Katrina and Yolanda, to make them more innocuous for Max. Within a week, the surgical masks on every street corner blue and white, then Gucci pink and Hermes polka dot, splutters contained behind high fashion. And the water we drink is Antarctic ice, eons old, once swilled by dinosaurs, an inside joke. Carrier rats bear the brunt, followed by ticks, fleas, lice, and the effervescent tsetse. And we don't swat and shoo, but never the monkeys. Our harmless swing in the trees, ancestors separated by a single strand of amino acid, who'd learn to uphold themselves and eat bananas. I say it was the dogs, the Labradors, Alsatians, those ratty chihuahuas, cuddled, coddled, and tickled. Still, none of it explains away the quakes, the freak storms and tsunamis. None of it justifies the plummeting price of gold, the vanishing of the beggars and the birds, the vacant beehives. None of it. In my mind, Molly still nags about that damn tax return. Isn't it strange how you prioritize? Short lesson from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Before the birds return, the flies, electrokinetic pellets flecking blank walls, devour the flesh of your simple home in uncountable clusters. You spin in your spider web of patched cotton gauze, dervish summoning the wisdom of ancestral ghosts flaming through paper-thin dimensions. What lurks beyond this breathy realm? Are you attempting to ascertain those that do and those that don't belong? Solidarity may be found even in the gravestone's faded words. You, on a whirl, bird of passion, performing for shadow cousins, dust dreaming up fog of the snowfall, of rust and paint and broken nails, the sound which arises is singular, a noise, but no, not music, not quite yet. I don't know if some of you know, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, weighing the heart, actually physically weighing the heart, had something to do with also the weight of the soul of the person. This poem is called Weighing the Broken Heart. Blessed the wind, cantankerous, asthmatic priest in swollen robes and feathered headgear, once ocean blue and red gold, now charcoaled, darkened to soot, water-fed and cornbread, sun-worshipping, sun-cursed, a ruinous, disseminating soul, gilded and guilt-ridden, heavy and handed and light-touched, exhales in exhausted prayer through empty lanes and alleys, prods rooftops, rattles broken panes, half-open doors, hinges groaning upon buckling frames, fingers familiar, faces of dying trees, thumbs anemic bird's nest, rubs eggs to awaken life within, kicks empty bottles and tins into blank squares, crumpled things under porticos and steps, blows ancient news into coppery osprey, kites, puffed up eagles with giant wings, tears leather-bound psalms from the palms of pews and aisles, whispers names of long-forgotten gods, leftover vowels as if in pidgin, as if in a burning foreign tongue, and as he gathers himself from his four corners, draws the promised strings, he recalls what it was like to breathe life into sun-filled stuff, how oxygen was a litany, and how every rain was an amen. He remembers cragged prayers, fragments in leaves scattered within his own tree, roots sinking to search for belief, limbs stretching out over a flock, the tremulous keys of a Portuguese accordion, wheezing a simple song into his lungs, the exhumation of 1,000 jagged sins. And now, on his last legs, he must remind himself once and again, he is neither woman nor is he man. He is nothing, nothing at all. Blessed the wind. Every broken brick. This one is after Zbigniew Herbert, a fabulous Polish poet. If you've never read him, you should read him. Under transient clouds, the plumb lines of trees find a straight vein of ore through earth. And, like Foucault, his steady pendulum, the rhythm of the magnetism that sings deep in the heart of the dearly devoted, draws a murmuring crowd. Those who repair shoes and republics say they are more than cobblers of old souls and of old men, believe we are made of blood and illusion, and carry the acrid symbol of their country sewn under their tongues. Yet, in the short, they recall little but that nest of tenderness and the weight of a sleeping head upon their shoulder, and in their dreams our own bumbling prophets come to them, giving names to men and objects, so they may never perish in the rituals of devotion, staring into the broken eyes of a factory. I cannot help but pray to some unknown creator, a God who may grant me visions, and I see I must become a voice for all things. Three more, and they're not that long. Super molecular, and this poem actually was specifically written for Harry Owen in South Africa, who printed an anthology to save the rhino, who, as I'm sure some of you know, has been brutally slaughtered for its horn. And so he asked me to write this poem for this anthology that he brought out in Cape Town. It's called Super Molecular. Imagine then, if you will, that river flowing freeform, that dapple and glint of light as a blinking of galactic constellations surfacing in water, then vanishing again, and that feline purr of soul. Imagine all of this coursing through your veins and your blood work. Imagine the iridescence of unblinking compound eyes, and that wild flounder and bounce, long swift legs in high spring kicks, hopping for sheer delight for their life, and that Cossack dance, the hopak, hop, hop, hop. Somewhere the strum of a balalaika, or the zither pling of congregating invertebrates, the sitar hum of bird formations, those swirling geometric patterns like sky runes. Imagine. And imagine, if you will, that wind-driven equine gallop, shoulder to shoulder, herding across wet grasslands, and that regal mane stirring among the tall grasses, that sway and roll, the telltale ear flapping of gentle giants, and the heavy tread, the earth turning to packed mud. And over there, undulate necks outstretched, kissing the tops of treetop leaves like lost lovers. And listen for the giggling gambol and the bounding leaps through the trees, and their echoes all along the valley right down to the lakeshore, where the whispers of feathers and the whir of wings breathe life into the air. Listen. Here's the chirp of dusk, followed by the coo-coo of the night. And there, the soft cawing, the rattle of brush, and somewhere near, the satisfied grin as stars cluster in concentric rings and sun pushes down over a far-flung horizon. Snakebite. Ivan collected him on the beach, flotsam, washed in with a tide like the bottle tops and tin cans and toilet seats. Ivan scrutinizes, wrapped in a raincoat and a furry bath mat that reads, Hotel Epicurios, a lover's paradise in the sun, and his shoes fall apart at his feet, and the sand in his shag follow us in breadcrumbs of mites and jumping fleas. Little fuckers get into the seat of your pants, into the cracks between your fingers and toes. Ivan steeps him a weak cup of instant soup, green asparagus, cucumber and peas. I notice the red bucket. Imagine the boy, the builder of castles, prince of beachcombers, god of dead fish and legless plastic toys. And behind at the stove, Ivan whispers, Joseph, just take a whiff of what's inside. And while the reptile boy is sipping hot mud soup, Ivan prizes the rose-rimmed porcelain plate from the bucket, unleashing a thick, grey, pungent foam that's enough to buckle the most intrepid, but we haven't had alcohol in weeks. And he reaches in with his finger, waves it beneath my nose. It takes a moment, but I'm seeing stars and winged spiders, antlered snakes, horned fish, and for a moment, even the origin of the universe flashes in streaks and lines and mysterious binary codes. Last one. I don't know if any of you know the French poet Yves Bonnefoy. I highly recommend him, one of the best in my opinion. This poem is called Transmigration and is dedicated to Yves Bonnefoy. Hunchbacked, we knock heads, trying not to feel the other's fingers as the sea cuts and tugs and urges, muffling in its flabby, swollen girth. The dampness seethes, squeezes into that rough gravity of curved planks. Salt encases hair, a second skin where indentations, crevices or scars trace icons of a recurring past. Crystal heat in ions as fleas creep into our rags and rat's eyes quiver like insect eggs. Voices are rigging and sails that creak and snap, and through knots and cracks above the light, finding little access, ceaselessly bemoans. And when we emerge, some of us, less than half the men we once knew, in one blinding flash, as a dog greets master, that curious light comes running, and then hovering for a split second, panting over a torn scrap of cloth, a flapping shoe sole continues right out the other side. Thank you.